Exodus chapter 4 from verse 21 to 23. And I thought, you know what, let me start with this portion of scripture because it's speaking exactly to where we are reading in our Bible study. And one of the things that you will learn if you are diligent and committed and consistent with the Bible study is that the Bible study has a way of just assisting you with wherever you are with life. I mean, for the past 3-4 years, I think, that I've been in the Bible study, I've just found that preparing for sermons, personally for me, has just been so much easier because every day I'm consistently in the Word. So for me personally, I get to preach a lot in other churches. I get to preach a lot in events. I preach even at weddings, at funerals, everywhere, like any event that you can think of. But I find that when I'm consistently staying in the Word, I will always have a current word for whatever event that I find myself preaching in. You know, for me, that's because I'm a preacher. And whatever a work that you are engaged in or wherever the process of life has you at right now, whether you are a parent, whether you are married, whether you are a daughter, a son, you are a student, you are working, you are building a business, whatever it is that you are engaged in or you are in between, you are waiting to go to school, you are waiting to start work, you are waiting to start a business, wherever you are in your life, you'll realize that the more you stay in the Word, there is always a current, a relevant, a Zoe word for wherever it is that you are in your life. So sometimes the process of the Bible study does not look spiritual. It does not look powerful. People are not falling as they are reading their Bibles. They are not rolling in their rooms as they are reading their Bibles. Often it just seems like an everyday part of your life, like brushing your teeth or like jogging in the morning if you are jogging or whatever it is that you are doing. But I want to assure you that when we are engaged in the Word, we are engaged in a spiritual exercise. So don't sit back and say, I'm not part of this. Be part of it, join us. Even with prayer at 5:30, you may not have been there, as Mr. S said earlier, but join us at 5:30 as well. Yo. Yeah, Pastor. Exodus 4:21 to 23. And the Lord said to Moses, when you arrive, I can remember Moses left Egypt because he had killed an Egyptian, and he left Egypt running away from being killed. Ne? Then the Lord is sending him back to Egypt, sending him back to the same Egypt that he ran away from. So then the Lord is speaking to him about going back to Egypt, and he says, when you arrive back in Egypt, go to Pharaoh and perform all the miracles I have empowered you to do. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, so he will refuse to let the people go. Then you will tell him, this is what the Lord says. Israel is my firstborn son. I commanded you, Pharaoh, let my son go so he can worship me. But since you have refused, I will kill your firstborn son. You know, when I was reading this particular portion of scripture, if I switched off my memory and pretended like I did not know what was going to happen in Egypt, it sounded like Moses was going to arrive in Egypt, tell Pharaoh, God is saying, let my people go. Pharaoh hardens his heart, I'm not going to let his people go. And then Moses performs some miracles. After performing some miracles, Moses says, God is going to kill your firstborn because Israel is God's firstborn and you're not letting him go. God is going to kill your firstborn. Then God kills the firstborn and then Pharaoh lets the children of Israel go. It didn't sound to me when I was reading this portion of scripture that this is a long process that is going to take days, weeks, or months. To me, it sounded like it's going to be a very quick thing, because even when God was doing these demonstrations with Moses, he was saying, throw your stuff on the ground, and it happened. Put your hand in your pocket, and it happened. So it sounded like this process of freeing the children of Israel was going to be quick. I didn't think there was going to be weeks or days of darkness, days of hail, days of flies, days of nets, days of locusts. I didn't think it was going to take a long time before Pharaoh does what God says he's going to do. Pastor Lwani, in our lives it's the very same thing. God tells you something. You know, we've been talking about getting our own property, which year? I think when we started, right from the beginning, when sometimes we would come to church and find one person, when in 2017 September, we were already talking about getting our own building. And in my mind, I was like, as Petama professionals, London is going to happen very, very fast. You know, it's 2023. Only now are we saying in a few weeks. And sometimes what seems to be the slowness of the process of your life may make you think the promises of God are not yes and amen. But I am here to assure you, Bazalwani, that when we think about the promises of God, we must not think about the promises of God with our carnal minds that says there are ultimatums, there are deadlines, there's a schedule that must be followed. We must trust what God says and believe that whatever it is that God says for us, it will happen for us exactly the way God says it. Then, if you read Psalms 90 verse 12, Psalms 90 verse 12 says, teach us to realize, this is the NLT, the brevity of life, so that we may grow in wisdom. And I mean, every Saturday of this new year, I've been at a funeral. And you know, it was different ages. I think one was somebody under 60. The second one was somebody who's 45. The third one was someone who is 80-something. So I have been, unfortunately, when something like that happens, you think about death a lot. It's just because you are surrounded by death all the time. You know, and this verse says, God, teach us to realize the brevity. Teach us to realize how short life is, so that we may grow in wisdom. In another version, it will say, teach us to number our days, so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. So you and I, as much as actually, this one is also my favorite. I'm not the dying type. You know, I don't know if you are also like that. They say, you, Mantsha, you are still, especially people that I haven't seen in a lot of time. You are still alive. I'm not the dying type. We are so sure that we are actually, all of us are the dying type. The only question is when. So here we are saying to God, we know that one day we will exit this earth. In the meantime, while we are here, teach us to number our days, so that we walk each day with a realization that I have to be present. I have to do everything that is in my heart. I have to show up 100%, because there will come a day where I wish I could have this day, and this day will be no more. So, as I was preparing for this series that is refusing to kick off, I spoke to two gentlemen, you know, and I spoke to Mr. S, and I spoke to Lindile Zingume, and I will just briefly explain to you how different their point of views are. So Mr. S has spent a bulk of his life working in big aircrafts. I think like really, really huge aircrafts that passengers are like 100 and something or 200 and something. That double-decker one, if you've ever worked in it, maybe 400 or 500. I don't know, something like, he's saying yes. So I don't know if he's just saying yes to be nice or the numbers are correct. You know, so he has worked on really large machines, where even when you look at the safety checklists and all the processes that they have to be engaged in, you can justify why they receive the flight plan more than a month in advance. You can justify why they have to go through every step of the way meticulously. They don't say a copy and paste from yesterday. They do every day like they are flying for the first time. They check everything like they didn't check it yesterday. Because should anything go wrong, 300 people are going to die. It will be headlines on every news agency in the world. So when you look at the magnitude of their responsibility, you understand why so much care has to be taken before their flight takes off, before the plane leaves the ground. They have to, you can't get the plane off the ground, and then when you are somewhere, after 10 minutes, you are, the fuel light is switched on. I didn't know there's no petrol. But when you can get into your car and you start driving, and somewhere along the way, you're like, the fuel light just went on. Let me find the nearest filling station. But with them, they can't afford that risk to be in the air and say, yo, I didn't check the oil. Let me find the nearest station. So they understand the responsibility they have. That's why they prepare the way they prepare. And I recommend, because I was going to try and give you a summary. It's too complex, but when I can't give you the summary, go and Google it yourself. Otherwise, if you can't Google it, I don't know if Mr. S is available to tell you all the things that they prepare from a safety point of view, from a taking care of the passenger's point of view, from ensuring that they are ready for any emergency. Because as in Mr. S's words, if something goes wrong with a passenger, you are the doctor, you are the hospital, you are everything. You need to know what to do during that point. So they are preparing for even things that are not flight related, because there are passengers in the plane. Then Zingume owns a small plane, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a 7-seater. He owns a small plane and he flies it himself. It's his and he's the pilot. And I was like, oh, if it's yours and you are the pilot, can't you just treat it the same way that we treat a car? Like I'm saying, if he's flying from Grand Central and he's going to Newcastle and he didn't check the fuel and he realizes when he's passing Springs that the fuel is not enough, can't he just land at Springs? It's his plane, you know what I'm saying? But then when I was listening to his own preparation, how he prepares for a very short trip, he does not go across the oceans. In most cases, he's flying from province to province. The checklist is equally as long. He may not be checking a whole lot of things about the passengers, but when it comes to the plane, he is checking everything around the plane, because he may not kill 300 people, but should something go wrong, even if there's no passenger, now he may die. So it's your life. You own it, and you are the pilot. What? You know what? For all I know, you could be watching Nigerian movies from the time you wake up until you sleep. For all I know, you could be binge watching a series on Netflix. You are on season 5, but you started Friday. You don't sleep. Your eyes are like this. You don't sleep. So it's your life. You are the pilot. You decide what to do with it. But I want you to realize that the consequences of living our lives without a plan and without a purpose are just as catastrophic as a person leading an organization without a purpose and a goal. We see organizations going down. We see businesses going down. We see even churches going down. And we are so quick to analyze, these people, the ruling party, if they had done this and this and that, if they had prioritized this and this and that. We are great analysts. But when I look at your life, you are making the ruling party to look like angels. They are pros in service delivery, because there's no delivery in your life. You are going nowhere. You are doing nothing. And you say, it's my life, I own it, and I am the pilot. So if there's anything that I want us to learn from aviation, from the industry, is even a day, one day in your life is important. What you do with that one day will determine what your year looks like. What you do in that one day will determine 10, 20 years from today the type of grandmother you are going. Okay, 20 is 10, 10, 20, for some of us, I mean, I've been a grandmother, guys, since I was in standard 6, And then on a show called Skim Sam, they introduced someone called Kuku Mantsha. So now all my grandchildren, they call me Kuku Mantsha. Sometimes even their mothers call me Kuku Mantsha. At first, I was really fighting. No, guys, I'm not Kuku Mantsha. So the executive producer of Skim Sam went to school with us in Mozambique. I even sent her a message and asked her, Winnie, Boranna, Oira Kuku Mantsha? Or is it just a coincidence? Because I was really taking it personally. Because then when I'm preaching, especially in places where they had never heard of the name Mantsha, as soon as I say Pastor Mantsha, they say, oh, like Kuku Mantsha. And then I'm like, guys, Mantsha is my name. I was there before Skim Sam. Why do you want to relate to me via Skim Sam? This is so unfair. But I thank God that you guys, you are not like, actually, Lena, you don't even watch Skim Sam. You guys, you are reading the Bible. You don't have time for stuff like that. You don't. Actually, half of you are even surprised what I'm talking about. Yeah. So, bazalwane, it's very, very important that you take your life seriously. That you take your life seriously and never say, right now, I'm doing nothing. Because sometimes, I remember after I got fired in 2015, there was a point where I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. Like, I had always known that I wanted to get into business. But sometimes when something happens to you suddenly, you are left dazed. You are left confused because you thought, this year I'm going to do this, and then it doesn't work out. And then your plan B is not working out, or your plan B is too far, or your plan B looks too impossible, or your plan B discourages and depresses you. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you are so clear this is what you want. Yeah, maybe this one is even better, and guys will understand it better. When you want a specific girl, and then she says no. And now, you hear what I'm saying? Now you have to go for plan B. You are stressed. And then you are just like, no, man. Guys, it's like that. You must not think you're plan A. If you think you're plan A, you live in depression. You must be comfortable with being plan D. And when you are plan D, you must excel. You must not feel like they didn't choose me first. You are there in a relationship bitter. They didn't choose. Bona, you must be an excellent plan D. People must not even know that you were not the first choice. Do you hear what I'm saying? Ladies, didn't hit home. You must not be worried to, hey, no. And then you went to my friend first, and just because my friend said no, but when you come to me, all things have passed away. Behold, all things are new. Do you hear me? Do you hear me? So when it doesn't work out with first choice, and people are like, no, there are many fish in the sea. There are lots of ladies. You don't see them. All men are trees. You don't see them. And you have that moment where you are dazed and confused and you don't know how to take the next step. It's okay to have that moment for a second, momentarily, for some time. But 3 years later, I meet you, the thing is, since Jane said no, my life has never been the same again. When Jane now, 1996, we are in 2003. You are still telling me about Jane. Do you hear what I'm saying, Bazalwane? So, things may not, your first plan, your option A may not work out. Just because your option A does not work out, it does not give you an opportunity to now walk aimlessly. So there is something again in aviation called a failed takeoff. Is that correct? Yeah, it's not correct, I would assume so. So, those of you who have not been on a plane, just record this. When you are on the plane, you will remember it. But those of you who have been on a plane, you know that they will do all those things. They'll tell you to get ready. Then they will say the flight attendants must also sit down, and then it's taking off. And for some reason, when the pilot takes off, he can't. For whatever reason, maybe he realizes something is not right. Then if they are already on the air, they will circle back and come back. They will clear it with air traffic control. They will come back. If they are not in the air, maybe they are still on the ground. I don't know if there's reverse or whatever, but they will figure it out how it happens down there. But they will not take off. Bazalwane, that pilot will then say, I'm giving up on my career. I no longer want to be a pilot. The other day when I tried to take off, all the aviation demons were against me. And actually in my family, no one has ever taken off. I'm quitting, and then he gets out of the plane. No, he's going to attempt again if it's not serious. Sometimes you may sit there for an hour, or they won't even offload you as passengers. You will be in there. They will fix whatever it is it needs fixing. And the way passengers in a plane are so trustworthy, you don't even have security or this thing worked. For all you know, you are flying to your death, but we are just nicely sitting there asking, what country is my name? Country, when are we leaving? Hey, this thing is taking. You are not even worried that something mechanical is wrong. You just want to live with a plane that is broken. So in our lives as well, have you ever attempted something that did not go well? These Mjolo examples, I like them, they are nice. Bona, you put, I'm going to use the guys now. You put her on social media, LOML. I didn't even know what it is. Is it LOML? Love of my life. I didn't know know what it was? I was trying to think, maybe you can laugh out loud, but laugh out loud with your mouth. Like, when you're trying to read it. Until someone told me, no, it's love of my, you put it there, love lives here, love of my life. We were watching another one with Kathleen. She must show you the reel, where they took lots of pictures. Afterwards, the girl is crying. After all this, he blocks you. After all this, he blocks you. So you do that. You paste her all over social media. Now she has blocked you. She has gone a wall. You don't know what you did wrong. She didn't say goodbye. She's gone. Now you have to go to your social media and delete it all. Delete. Instagram, delete. Stories, delete. You don't want a trace. And because even when you delete on social media, people remember. They ask you how. Okay, Mantsha, say Fred. Now, what is it? You have failed to take off. But now listen to you. Women, this gender is evil. That's why they spoke to the snake. If the snake spoke to a man, the man would, how can you trust women? They are speaking to snakes. Yeah, Velanje, who are we as men? There's another one. Today, this preaching is full of wrong things. There's another photo where the man is looking at his phone, and there's a young kid who's looking at the phone like this. Then the caption says, Norai Rumile Noran. Bazalwane, just because you failed to take off in that relationship, he left you pregnant. He didn't, or he was beating you up on. Now you are saying marriage is not for me. Family is not for me. Children are not for me. We are making permanent decisions based on just the fact that the plane, there was just one small fault. Lewena, you didn't take your time to know her. Lewena, you never asked her, I'm here for the long term. Are you also here for the long term? You were just charmed by the dimples. Now the dimples are going with her. You are frustrated. So now when you are circling back to the runway to start again, make sure that all those things that you did not check earlier, you check them and double check them. But don't give up on your journey. Bazalwane, our lives are precious before God. God has a purpose for each and every one of Bazalwane. There are no second-class citizens. There are no people who have accompanied others. There are no people whose job is to make sure that when you look good. Even when the makeup artist is putting makeup on your face, she is fulfilling her vision and her dream of being a makeup artist. Her vision and her dream is not to make you beautiful. Do you see what I'm saying? Even though her work involves making you beautiful, her vision and her dream is to be an expert in making up people, if that's what it's called, in giving them face beads. So when you can't go through life feeling like the rest of us have come to earth to serve you. Serving you is how we realize the vision and the purpose that God has placed upon our lives. Does that make sense, Bazalwane? So when a person is in hospitality, you must not be mistaken to think that their ministry is you. They are doing what God has called them to do, which is the ministry of serving. They are not serving you. Do you see it, Bazalwane? So when I think about Zingume's trips, they are short. And he's not going with a lot of people. He is going with very few people. And when he was trying to explain to me all the things that are needed to get his spot, if I can put it like that, before he can take off. Like, he can't just arrive at Grand Central and go in the air. Do you understand what I'm saying? Not like you. He can't just... And then I was like, Mara Zingume, isn't it better to just get into your car and drive to wherever? Because by the time you contact air traffic control, and then you make sure that they say, yes, you can go, you're talking to them all the time. Same thing when you land. It just sounded so cumbersome. And even Mr. S, when he was explaining to me everything that they do, including checking that if it's lunch, they don't have eggs and bacon for the passengers, I said, So many things, like you check everything to the minutest detail. When they were telling me this thing, it sounded cumbersome. It sounded too much. To me, it felt like, I will never get it right. If I was a pilot, or if I was an air hostess, which is what we used to call them when we were young, but now I don't think they are called that anymore. So if I was that person, I think I would have failed. They would have chased me. I wouldn't be able to remember anything. But both of them said, when you do it often, then it starts to happen automatically. When you do it often, then you do it without thinking. All of you who are driving, do you remember when we started driving, especially manual? Brake, clutch, brake, parking, blind spot, what are you look? It was like you are mad. Blind spot, did, like brake, clutch, change gears. At some point we could have said, driving is not for me. It was difficult. The first time that I went to a driving school, the man who was teaching us, our instructor, was so rude. He used to call us the Pudi. Like, at that time you are stressed, ne? Then this guy is shouting at you, calling you Pudi. Pudi is a goat. For those who don't know, like you are stressed by his voice. He used to shout at us. I didn't know what it was back then, but we had anxiety. When we saw him, we started shaking because we knew you are going to be called Pudi for the next hour. Then one day, when we were driving, he used to have to teach two of us together, myself and another lady. And then we would drive in 10. So if it's a 1 hour lesson, he would take us for 2 hours. And then we would exchange with one another. And when the other lady was driving, the way he was shouting at her so much, that lady went onto oncoming traffic. And it was the instructor's mistake, because the instructor said 10 left. And as she turned left, the robot had just opened. And it was 4 lanes of cars were coming towards us. That lady let everything go. She lifted her feet, actually. She lifted her feet. She lifted her hands. And she said, get one way. Luckily, the car had a handbrake on this side, and the instructor managed to pull the car to off the road, and then the cars passed. Mara, you know what happened to that lady, unfortunately? That was the last day. She never came back to class. That was the last day. She never came back to class. You know what? Sometimes there's nothing wrong with you. You are just with the wrong people. They are calling you Pudi. That's why you are starting to think like a Pudi. Like, you understand what I'm saying? You are in the wrong company. Now your life is failing because you are starting to, now you're behaving like, you know how rebellious a Pudi is. Now, we talk about Pudi. So you need to remove, I don't know if she went to another driving school, which I suspect. And she just had to remove herself from that toxic environment that was making it difficult for her to achieve what she wanted to achieve. So when you insist on staying with people who look down on you, who say negative things about you, when we ask you to leave them, you say they've been my friends for 10 years. Okay, you say they are my cousins. You say they are my family. But every time when you are with them, they are bashing every decision you make. Yo Mantsha, o ka para sutu ka teki ya Nike awa wena. Wa o sa apare hili, bona o rujwa. Le Mantsha o sa dia di card, o le mosadi o mokaka ba sa di ba dia di weave. And then when you are staying with them every day, you are with them every day. Nakere, shala le basadi ba le na ba di weave motswala. We will meet each other at the funeral. I'm never going to hang out with you ever again. Because what we don't realize is that when this man kept shouting to us, Pudi, 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 he didn't have to say Pudi the next day. The minute we saw him, even before he said anything, we started to see ourselves as grasshoppers in their eyes. Do you see what I'm saying, Bazalani? So now, when it comes to your life, be so serious about what you are doing and where you are going. Be so serious about what you are engaged in, no matter how small it can look like from the people who are on the outside. Because one day, the small things that you are doing, you will be doing them automatically. You know, right now, when I change lanes, Before, when I started driving, I would say it out loud, blind spot, blind spot. Now when I change a lane, I just glance. Not blind spot. The car, the next thing is also going with you to the blind spot. You just glance a little bit and you change a lane. Back then, when you could never change a lane when a car is a few meters, you had to wait for the entire thing to be clear. Miss your turn right, because you were not going to try and change a lane in advance. And I mean, for those of you who are going to start to learn to drive, at least you are lucky. When it's happening to you, you won't feel like you are the most stupid person on earth. Because for me, I would look at all the driving people, all these people can drive, but now I'm unable to drive. But now you know, starting is hard. Starting a routine that involves a lot of interlinked processes. At the beginning, it is tough. At the beginning, you even have to write down the things so that you can remember them. But there will come a time when you will remember them without referring to something that you have written down. So at some point in my life, God spoke to me about putting on the whole armor of God every morning. And I used to put it on, literally, like I put on the belt of the truth, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, my feet are shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. I'm holding the sword of the Spirit, the shield of faith with which to quench the fiery darts of the enemy, and I'm praying without ceasing. I was saying it all the time. When I received this word in my spirit to do that for about 3 weeks, I was opening Ephesians 6. So that when I put on the whole armor of God, I'm reading, I put on the whole armor of God. Yabana. But then, I don't know whether it was week 2 or which week it was, I didn't have to open Ephesians anymore. I never started out wanting to memorize it, but somehow I memorized it. One of my friends used to struggle a lot when she was sleeping. She would have serateledi. What is it called? When you... Yeah, it has a name in English. I thought kilo chabuloi. Sleep paralysis, it's a thing. Yeah. No, I just thought when all Turkish like they're bewitching you. But apparently it's there in English. So maybe it's not witchcraft. I don't know. So she used to struggle a lot with sleep paralysis. And now what ended up happening is that she started having insomnia because she was afraid of sleeping. Because she knew that when she sleeps, this thing is going to happen and it's difficult. And I said to her, my friend, every day before you sleep, say Psalms 91 out loud. And she would say Psalms 91 out loud. Then I would say, when this thing happens, try to shout Jesus, Jesus. I think that's how they taught us when we were young. When sleep paralysis comes, you shout Jesus. And I don't know if it has ever happened to you. If it hasn't, you are fortunate. So at first when you are trying to shout, you can't speak. You want to speak, but you, hey, relax. Hey, no one is bewitching you. Then you're saying Jesus, Jesus, and then you can't. Then at some point when you are persisting with saying Jesus, Jesus, then you can speak, then you say Jesus. Then I said, as soon as you are up now, say Psalms 91 again. The first couple of weeks, she was opening her Bible, reading Psalms 91. We were sharing. We were not sharing actually. I would leave my room and go stay with her. She would also leave her room and come and stay with me. We were at vets. Then after some time, then if it happens at night, then she will struggle. She'll wake me up. We'll read Psalm 91 again. Hey, after some point, hey, let's open Psalm 91 to read it again. Hey, sisters, going through Psalm 91 from the beginning to the end without opening her Bible. Life is exactly like that. Some of these things that you are refusing to do. This was me. I was like, now I can't cook lamb shank. If I want to eat lamb shank, I have to go to the restaurant. Boy, now YouTube. You watch YouTube, you see what they're doing, you do it. Now I cook it without YouTube. I used to be pap and morogo girl, pap, morogo and meat only. Now YouTube, there's nothing that I can't cook. If I don't know how to cook it, YouTube. First couple of days, you can ask my husband if you don't believe me. I read, even Catholic can testify. I said, no, maybe the first time, the next thing we are eating this lamb shank, something does not taste right. But Shem, they will just eat it and be nice. Then next time when I cook it, I realize something went wrong with the last one. Then I change this and change. Then after some time, I have a recipe that makes sense. You need a recipe for your career, for your Christian walk, for your relationship with Christ, for your relationship with us. Bona, you are difficult to relate with. Before I call you, I have to pray and say, Father, I'll use Mr. S because he's not a problem. Father, I'm going to call Mr. S. Right now, bless me. Make the path before me. Light it with your fire. Send your angels ahead of me because you are too sensitive. So have a recipe for living with people. You are always waduba all the time. Hey, they didn't do this for me. They did. Have a recipe for living with people. Be a delight to live with. Be a delight to us as a church. Be a delight to your family. Your children, when they see you, they must jump for joy, not run away. Right now, when we were growing up, I don't know if it's because my dad was horrible, but I think it's because he was the one who was beating us up. Even when you were naughty during the week, my father used to come back on Friday. My mother used to say, wait until Friday. She didn't have to finish the sentence. My father was coming back on Friday. Then when my father arrives, my mother tells him all the things we were doing that week. And I don't know why my father was like that. I mean, I can talk about him, he's late. Mara, then he was always ready to beat us up. He did not corroborate the information. He did not ask us if we really did it. That man's belt was always ready to fire. So as soon as we just knew, as soon as that short meeting was finished, Mantsha, then you just knew you were going to be beaten. It was, we were not abused. It was just our life. It was just how we lived. Some of you may be sitting there and say, yo, Pastor Mantsha, do you need trauma counseling? No, I don't need counseling. It was just how we lived. So have a method for the different things that you want to do with your life. Who do you want to be in 2023? What are some of the things that you're going to put into place to ensure that you become that person? Right now, you may be incompetent in some of the things you want to do, but you have an opportunity to write them down somewhere. Keep doing them as you refer to a video. Keep doing them as you refer to a list until you get to a point where you do them naturally, effortlessly. You know, reverse used to be one of my biggest challenges. No, you get to a point where you reverse out of a very long alley without ever going forward anymore. But for now, if it means reverse 3 and go back 2, reverse 3 after, you'll only come out after 5 minutes. Don't say reverse is not for me. Keep reversing until you become an expert at reverse. They say there are cars that need to be reversed, but reverse. Reverse. Until you get to a point where you are naturally and unconsciously competent at whatever it is that God has laid in your heart for 2023. Let's stand up on our feet in the name of Jesus.